Since it's summer, I thought let's paint something summery, and a background with citrus slices is what popped into my mind, and that's what I'm painting today. Here are the products I will be using. The typical watercolor products. You don't need the exact products I'm using, just use what you already have or can afford. I also have a washi, pencil, and since I'm making a card, I also have a card base and a glue that is not on the screen. And I will have these products listed over on my blog. I cut my cardstock a little bit bigger than my card base, which I will explain why a little bit later, and I taped it onto a board. I first drew the background with a pencil. I drew simple circles across the background and I used the washi as my template because it was the perfect size. By the way, the size of the circles will influence the amount of time you will need for the painting. It took me about an hour, maybe more, to paint this. If you would like something more quicker, then try making the oranges bigger. I actually have an example for you where I painted the oranges bigger, and I will show it to you at the end of this video. After I was finished drawing the circles, I also drew small circles in the middle of each circle. Lemons and oranges have this wide middle, so I wanted to know where I need to stop painting. And I wanted the circles to be more or less in the center, so I used a ruler. But that's optional, you can definitely eyeball it. Before I started painting, I also slightly erased the pencil lines so they are not too visible. What I'm using is supposed to be a kneaded eraser, but it's not, it's way too stiff, but it still does the job. Next, I prepped my paints. I decided to paint oranges and grapefruit, so I picked light and dark orange and red paint. And the idea is to use red and dark orange together and then dark and light orange. I started with the red and dark orange. First, I painted the circle for the peel. I was trying not to make it too thick. And while it was wet, I used a clean damp brush and added clean water across the circle, touching the red paint so it mixes with the clean water. This creates a really nice effect and also adds a little bit of color across the circle. But this is completely optional, I just like the look. I let it dry and then I painted the middle. All I was painting are triangles. I first painted the outline and I stopped right above the small middle circle that I drew earlier. Also, as I was painting the outline, I was trying to make the edges of the triangle slightly rounded. And then inside of the triangle, I was creating short strokes with my brush. I am using here a size 4 brush with a very pointy tip, so I was able to push the tip of the brush and create small dashes. And I filled the whole triangle this way with small dashes, short strokes, and as I was painting, I was trying to blend the outline as well. And while the paint was wet, I dropped in some of the red paint, again doing the little dashes or just using the tip of the brush. For me, as I'm painting, it's always what feels more comfortable. Sometimes it was the little dashes, sometimes I did short strokes, or sometimes I used the tip of the brush. And what you also want to do is to leave some white space, white highlights in between as you are painting. And if you cover some of the white space, that's completely okay. And I repeated this across the whole circle. While I'm talking, and so it's not too boring for you, I will speed up the video a little bit. However, if you prefer it to be slower, let me know in the comments. So as you are painting the triangles, they do not have to be the same size. Some of them did not touch the middle circle or just touched it slightly because I just did not have space. But this way it looks more natural. You can obviously pre-draw the triangles. You can also use a reference photo and paint with that. I would actually recommend looking up a photo of a slice of an orange or a lemon just to have a better idea of what you are painting. At least that always helps me. The first citrus slice is done. One of the triangles I painted a little bit darker, so I will be adding more of the red a little bit later. For the next orange slice, I used the dark and light orange paints. I started with the circle, the peel, and for that I used the dark orange. Then again, I used a clean water and I activated the paint to spread it across the circle. And after it was dry, I painted in the triangles. This time I started with the light orange and then I added the dark orange. And I painted it the same way as the first orange, or rather grapefruit, just painting short strokes. And I repeated this process across the background, painting all of the orange slices. I was sort of struggling with the paint-water ratio, which is nothing new. I always have trouble with that. But here I was actually using the paints directly from tubes, which is something I'm not used to. These are cheap paints that I bought in Lidl and I'm actually giving them another try. Originally I squeezed them out onto a palette and let them dry, and I didn't like them. But directly from the tubes, they are much better, they are more vibrant. I heard that this is an issue with cheap paints in tubes when you put them onto a palette. And I'm happy that I tried again, and in the future I will be using them more often. Alright, I will speed up the video even more and play some music just so you can see more of the painting. I'm pretty much repeating the process, and I will be back to make it into a card. So the painting is done. It was a lot of fun to paint it. I also added splatter after I was done with the oranges, but I didn't press the record button. You can see me creating splatter in other videos. This is pretty much what I do most of the times when I use watercolors, so I hope you don't mind. Next, I removed the washi tape, and as I said at the beginning, I cut the cardstock a little bit bigger. This is because I decided to die cut it using a stitched rectangular die, and I wanted to have the full pattern inside of the die cut panel. If you do not have dies, other thing I like to do, and this is only when I cut the panel smaller than the card base, is to paint the edges of the panel, as you can see in this example. Actually, I was also considering cutting the cardstock to the exact size of the card base and have a nice border created by the washi. What you decide to do, it's completely up to you. Lastly, I assembled the card. I have here a white card base and a greeting that says "Let's celebrate." I adhered the watercolor panel on top of the card base using a liquid glue, and the banner with the sentiment I attached on top of it. To adhere the banner, I used foam squares. The banner with the greeting I pre-made. I stamped and heat embossed the sentiment using a white embossing powder, and then I cut it into a banner. If you do not have stamps, you can actually buy sentiment strips or just write it yourself. So here is the finished card. I absolutely love it. I think it's a fun idea for the summer, and I hope you will give it a try. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I created another card with bigger oranges to decrease the painting time, and here it is. I love it as well. For this one I used a happy birthday greeting, and I don't know which one I prefer more. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.